What's up, YouTube? It's your girl Latrina, and I am back again today with another tarot spread read. Starting off in our first row, we do get the card of the star. The star card comes out in the very first row, which does speak of a wish fulfillment or someone not getting a wish fulfillment. Or maybe someone may be trying to stop a wish fulfillment because it does come out in the reverse. And we also get the chariot in that first row, which is, the topic of today. Everything in this first row is going to be depicting the topic. We also get a false person showing up, as well as the journey card that does show up right with that chariot. So we get the double chariot and this false person. Someone's writing in. Someone's coming in hot when we get the double chariot. And whomever it is that's coming in is showing up as a false person. And they actually want to put an end to your wish fulfillment. Whomever this individual is that's coming in hot on these chariots, they are actually a false person coming in hot. Because in our second row, we do get the Ten of Swords coming in the reverse. And that Ten of Swords, it speaks of a completely crush. Someone wants to completely crush another person. And annihilation is another word that comes to mind when I see this Ten of Swords. But when it's in the reverse, maybe someone wants to actually remove the swords that they placed in your back, But you should not have survived that Ten of Swords. They did completely try to put an end to your health and wellness as well. And we get another horseman here. We got the Knight of Cups coming in with an apology. Usually this Knight of Cups does come in with an apology in the cup. And it might be in the traditional tarot, the writer does have a fish in his cup, which does to me mean that this is a very fishy offer and a fishy individual that is not to be trusted, because they do want to put an end to your wish fulfillment. And they're coming in hot to put an end to your wish fulfillment. And they are showing up as a false person. And we also get the privileged lady in the reverse in that second row. This privileged lady may want to come in with an apology, because they do show up in the very same row. And maybe someone's health and wellness is not doing so great, by getting that card in the reverse. And then if you want to do a double aspect read, it's also meaning that they want to put an end to your health and wellness by coming out in the reverse with this actual fake apology. Because that fish is something that should not be in a cup if this was a real, true, genuine person or offer. They show up with the fish in the cup. And then we also get this clergyman that does come out in the second row as well, right on top of this privileged lady. And she may be sending in this clergyman to offer you this fishy apology cup, to put an end to your health and wellness, and also put an end to any wish fulfillment that you may be, subject to. Someone wants to put an end to your wish fulfillment, and they're riding in hot, coming in on a chariot, a double chariot. And we got like 3 horseman cards coming in here in the spread in these first 2 rows. And this first row does depict the topic of discussion. So if it speaks of this individual coming in hot, this false person, whomever they may be, they're coming in hot. And they do want to put an end to your wish fulfillment. Showing up as this clergyman, we got a privileged lady, and we got a false person showing up in the very first row. But it looks like this privileged lady may be sending in this clergyman to try to actually make amends or apologize about trying to end you, about putting 10 swords in your back. That's probably what this apology is going to be referring to. It's an apology for a betrayal, and it's an apology for an actual annihilation attempt to annihilate you, to completely end you. Because most people don't get up from them 10 of swords. That's a complete end to an individual whenever they do get that kind of card showing up. But in the reverse, someone probably, like I said, they want to actually take the swords out of your back. They want to show up, like as if they they apologize. They want to show up with an apology. And they're being sent in by this privileged lady. Because in our third row, we do get the strength card in the reverse, which does have the message of harassment on it. And then we also get the devil in the reverse coming out in that third row, right on top of the strength card and right on top of the harassment message. And to me, that speaks of someone doesn't even have the strength, because they lost that control. They lost their actual handle and their grips and their actual chains. They had bondage and chain. They had you under bondages and chains. But whenever this devil comes out in the reverse due to a loss of strength, maybe someone lost their strength. Someone that used to harass you has completely lost their power. And then they were getting their power from the darkness, and the devil has lost his control over the situation. Something that was being worked upon, with the devil. They were under contract with this devil. When you see this occupation card coming out right on top of the devil, that lets you know somebody had a contract that they were working with the devil. Their occupation was with the devil. And they took, they completely have no strength. At this time, they lost their strength. The devil has lost his stronghold ability. Because we get that constancy card coming out also in that third row, which does have the observation effect completely attached to it. Someone's been watching, this situation regarding this devil's control, this devil's loss of his control. Someone was watching that, there was another individual working, this false person. And this clergyman had a contract with the devil to completely end you. Because, we get this 10 of swords, which does speak of a complete end to an individual who's laying flat on their back. And they wanted to put a complete end to your wish fulfillment. Whenever you see that star in the reverse. And they still want to do it because they're coming in on a chariot. Because they've been watching, or they've been being watched. They've been being watched, and they can, they've been spotted for harassment. seen as a stalker or a harasser, that doesn't have any strength at this time because they did lose control. The devil's hold and his grip has been actually taken. This contract that he had to work with the devil, this contract is actually being watched. Someone's aware of it, and someone can see that someone has a contract to completely end you and to take your strength. They want to make you weak by using harassment, and more than one person to harass you. That's going to try to make you weak. That's one of them emotional tools. It's one of them physical tools. They're using everything in their power to take your strength, you know, including this contract that they had with this devil. That was one of their power play moves, to try to completely end you with this Ten of Swords. And now their next power play move is to come in on this Chariot, showing up as this false person, coming in on a double Chariot. That just tells me that this is a lot of motion, a lot of movement forward, and a lot of action that's going to be taken here in this present day or this future, upcoming, energy. This false person wants to come in on this Chariot to offer this apology and show up as a clergyman, maybe a kind man or a spiritual man. He may want to show up as a spiritual person that he's grown. But in all truth, he's been sent in by this privileged lady to give you an apology. So then in turn, he can actually annihilate you and put an end to your health and wellness. He wants to annihilate you. And it doesn't get any clearer than that, because when you do get the Ten of Swords and this wish fulfillment in the reverse, along with this false person and this fishy offer with this Knight of Cups showing up, there's no questioning those three cards, and that they're being watched. They have no power. The devil's lost his power, and he lost his strength, because the devil was providing him with some sort of ability, special abilities. He was actually under contract with this devil, to take your strength. He was under contract with this devil to harass you, to make you weak. Because whenever you see strength in the reverse, that speaks of someone not being strong. They're weak. That's the opposite of strong is weak. And then next in our fourth row, we do get the Ten of Cups coming out in the reverse, which does speak of family. That's what this Ten of Cups usually speaks of. And then we get the Tower card also coming out in that fourth row, with this great fortune coming out also, right with that Tower and the Ten of Cups. So it looks like your family, has some involvement in this situation with this clergyman and this false showing up as this false person. Your family has something to do with, trying to bring you to a complete end, to trying to bring a death upon you. That's exactly what, and it's actually regarding this great fortune and this house that's been coming out in every single message that I've been doing for the past week. We've been getting a message about a great fortune and a house. And this does regard your family, showing up as this Ten of Cups. They want to put you to death. They don't want you living. They don't want you alive. They want to put an end to your strength. They've also been watching you, your family, because they want to know if you got this great fortune. And they also want to know if you got this house, information about this house and this great fortune that they did try to kill you for. Your family did try to annihilate you for this great fortune and this house. And they want to send in, like I said, they want to send in this clergyman, false person type of person. He shows up as a false person, this clergyman. And he also comes out right on top of this privileged lady, which does tell me that they actually, she's responsible for sending him in. She's going to send this clergyman in, who is a false person. Both of these individuals are false people. But she does want to send him in with an apology, a fishy offer. A fishy cup was in that, a fish is in this cup, which, that's just depicting a fishy offer. And they do want to put an end to your health and wellness. Once again, because this is not the first attempt. This is not the first attempt to take your wish fulfillment, and to put an end to your health and wellness with this fake apology coming from this false person, being sent by this privileged lady in the reverse. And this guy is actually going to show up as some kind of a, ascended man. He's not going to show up as an ascended master, but he's going to show up that he's actually been touched by God, or that he's changed in some sort of way. That's the appearance that he's going to cloak himself under. A clergyman that has changed his life. And it's like I said, your family has sent this guy in to end you, to completely annihilate your life because of this great fortune and this house. This house is enough to put an end to a person. Because in our fifth row, we do get the Seven of Swords, which does speak of deception and envy. And in that depiction in the traditional tarot, this Seven of Swords shows a guy that has stolen, swords from 2 to 3 other individuals. He took their swords, so he's running with like 5 of them, and he actually left 2 behind, but he's actually getting ready to get tripped up by one of the swords that he didn't take. He's running into a trap. A self-imposed trap is what this deception and envy is actually depicting in the traditional tarot, that he's actually running into a trap. And, we do also get the 3 of Pentacles coming out in that 5th row, right on top of that deception card. Right on top of that self-imposed trap, or tripping over the swords that he actually left behind. He left some evidence behind also that's going to trip him up, whenever we see that deception and envy. The evidence was left behind regarding something that he did work on behind the scenes. Because this 3 of Pentacles tells me that something was done behind the scenes. And it's going to trip him up, trying to attain this sudden wealth. There was some things done behind the scenes to attain that sudden wealth. And it's also going to, cause a misfortune. Whatever that he's going to trip himself up with It's going to cause a misfortune to his sudden wealth. And those things that were done in the back scene, the backdrop, the background, whenever you see that Three of Pentacles, there's a lot of things that are not being, you know, put up front. They're being done in the background, behind the scenes. Because in our last row, we get the Five of Swords, which does come out in the reverse. And it does give the message of call my attorney. And this Five of Swords, it speaks of winning at all costs. A person's attempt to win at all costs. But when it does come out in the reverse, this person is actually willing to put those swords down. And they're actually wanting to come out of conflict. Because they're getting misfortunes over here. Because they done tripped up on their own actual swords. The swords that they stole and things like that to attain sudden wealth. And whatever they did in the background is actually imposed a trap for them. Because they're actually going to fall upon those swords that they laid down for you. That they stole too, from other individuals. And, they're going to want to actually put an end to the conflict because they may be having some memories of the past, and whenever I see that card, it's not so good memories, meaning that maybe this person is reflecting upon something regarding, some kind of law that he did break when he was in this deception energy and this winning at all cost energy, and this actual trap that he got caught up in, because we do got this officer that does show up in the reverse, and this tells me that in the past he may have been working with an officer, because our next card in that last row, this is the very last card, and it is the card of courtship. So maybe he had some kind of a courtship with an officer, that he's reflecting upon, or that this was in the past, that did end in conflict, He wants to come out of conflict. Maybe this officer wants to come out of conflict, regarding something that he did in the past. This officer, he may be seeing something, about what was done to you from your family, He probably witnessed something, this officer did, regarding this clergyman, and even regarding this privileged lady. It looks like this officer has actually seen something, that this is involving a courtship, that they partnered up. He's seen that this clergyman and that this privileged lady did partner up to try to annihilate you and put an end to your strength and make you weak, And probably they're now weak, because they did trip upon their swords. And they did actually lose their power and control over the situation. And then they did probably even lose their contract with the devil, It's probably ended. It may be on some kind of a timeline, or some kind of a, time was of the essence when it came to this contract that he had with this devil,